Hey guys, salut, it's Alex, so welcome back to the wine series. It is now episode 3 of how to make fabulous wine, and this episode is going to be all about alcoholic fermentation. In this series, I'm sharing my whole experience about wine making at home, from fresh grapes all the way to beautiful wine, and using only cheap and basic equipment. Of course, along the way I will share fun facts and useful tips. Whether you want to make wine or you just want to drink it, let's be honest, remember to always act safely and responsibly. Last time we turned beautiful, fresh and lively grapes into a soggy mess. But trust me, we did a good job, and so everything is now ready for the next step. Before we turn this into a proper wine, we need to turn it first into a prison wine, which is in fact nothing but an alcoholic fermented fruit juice. To do that, we need yeast. So it's not a sourdough episode, but honestly it could be. When the yeast eat all the sugars existing in the wine must, in this case glucose and fructose, they produce alcohol and CO2 gas, which is exactly what's happening in bread making. End of the baking digression. So in the previous episode I got a few doubting comments about my choice of yeast, but let me elaborate. Although you can find specific and more efficient wine yeast online pretty easily, I am intentionally using a generic one for this job because I want to keep it basic. Plus, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is my yeast, has been around for centuries. Will it be for bakers, beer brewers, or in our case, wine makers? So please don't worry, everything's gonna be fine. Before we touch anything, remember to always clean and sanitize any equipment before and after use. For about 10 liters of must, I am using 2 grams of yeast. To activate it faster, I am mixing it with warm water first and a touch of sugar. Then I'm dissolving that into our wine must. Be sure to thoroughly mix it, and finally place the lid back on. So if we did well, the reaction happening inside should now start producing alcohol, which is great, but it should also start producing CO2 gas, meaning that if we leave it closed, it might explode. Problem is, we can't leave it open either, as we want to protect our wine must against bacteria and oxidation. The solution is to use a babbler or an airlock, which allow gas to come out but not to get in. I'm making one with tubing, again for the sake of the DIY goddess, but don't worry, you can find cheap ones online very easily. After about a day or so, and if you listen very carefully, you will hopefully hear a little bubbling sound from time to time. Those poppings will be very rare at first, but more and more frequent as time goes by. Even though it can't explode, it's quite the opposite in fact. CO2 gas still is very dangerous in the sense that it will cause suffocation by displacing oxygen, especially in low or poorly ventilated places like cellars or basements or even kitchen studios. To counter that, I am extending the output of my bubbler with some clear tubing, and I am placing the other end outside my window. This way I won't die from suffocation, that's for sure, but I might freeze to death as I have to leave the window slightly open in October. Alcoholic fermentation usually lasts anything from 7 to 15 days, during which you have to follow a very specific routine. Every day you will mix the wine must thoroughly. This way your wine will get more colors and more aromas, and the yeast will work better. The easiest way to do it for me was to shake it vigorously. You can also open the lid and thoroughly mix it, but as the oxidation and the bacteria clearly are our enemies here, try to avoid air contact as much as possible. Then pick up about 250 milliliters of skinless and seedless wine must. Pour that in a tasting jar and now carefully lower an hydrometer in it. Okay, I owe you an explanation. With this hydrometer, densimeter thing, I am now measuring the amount of sugar remaining in the wine must and its evolution over time. In short, the more it floats, the higher the sugar content, so the earlier you stand in the fermentation process. This is grape juice, for example. The less it floats, on the other hand, the lower the sugar content, meaning that yeast have been eating a lot, and so the further you stand in the fermentation process. And now this is wine, for example. To do a proper reading, look at the scale precisely at the floating line and write down that number. Of course, it depends on the scale of your hydrometer, but usually when density drops below 1000 grams per liter, then the alcoholic fermentation is over and you are ready to move on to the next step. I will put a link to a good one in the description down below, which also allows you to easily estimate the alcohol content of your wine to be. And last, people, you should always end up your routine by tasting the wine must. Right, so this is the first wine tasting ever of my 2016 Cuvée Château Le Studio. It smells like grapes, like alcohol, pretty strong. The color is not bad, it's a bit light. But it's not bad, not bad! It's a bit acidic, it's a bit fruity, a bit yeasty. It's a bit sweet. I can feel the heat right there. Some kind of dryness on the tongue. It's not very well balanced for the moment. It's not Chateau, Latour, whatever, but it's okay. Okay guys, that's it for now. If you have any specific question about this whole episode about the alcoholic fermentation, please let me know in the comments down below. The next episode, very important, will be about maceration and also the second major act, the malolactic conversion or fermentation. I really hope that you guys are enjoying the journey, this wine making series as much as I do. If you do, then please give it a big thumbs up and share that over on your social media. Spread it like butter. If you want to go the extra mile, then you can go check out my Patreon page and financially support my work. That really helps a lot me in this, you know, challenging adventure. Last, people, click subscribe because I make new videos every week. It's always about food, it's always about pushing the boundaries. There are many more winemaking episodes, there are a few sourdough episodes coming, but I've also got something very secret that is coming to my channel very soon. So, in the meantime, take care, bye bye, salut.